Good morning and Happy New Year. Welcome to Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee call-in meeting. The date is the 12th of January and we are live. Item 1, do we have any apologies, Mandy?
Thank you, Chair. We've received apologies from Councillors Bagley and Councillor Hall.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest? No. Thank you. Then item 3. Consideration of the called-in decision. The purpose of today's meeting is to consider a decision made by the Cabinet member about children in the care of other local authorities. To lay out the decision that took place, 1. Agree to cease funding the non-statutory requirement of providing return home interviews, RHI, return home interviews for children in the care of other local authorities who are placed within Staffordshire County Council. 2. Utilise the remaining 25-26 funding previously signed for providing return home interviews for children in the care of other local authorities who are placed within the Staffordshire County Council geographical area to instead contribute towards Staffordshire County Council's statutory duty to deliver return home interviews for children in the care of Staffordshire County Council who are placed outside the geographical area. As a committee, having heard from the call-in member and the Cabinet member, we then have the opportunity to ask the Cabinet member questions and from this consider and agree any recommendations we wish to make. To remind what recommendations we can make, 1 can be to agree the decision to be implemented, 2, refer it back to the Cabinet member, and 3, refer it back to full council. If everyone's happy with this, we can start this, and would the lead member, Councillor Humphreyston, would explain why the decision was called in.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year to all of you. So I want to set out why the proposal to cease return home interviews for children in care of other local authorities, CICOLAs, presents significant safeguarding, operational and governance risks for this authority. Although CICOLA RHIs are non-statutory, the risks these children face are identical to those faced by Staffordshire children. They live in our communities, attend our schools and go missing from addresses within this county. Removing RHIs reduces our visibility of risk, weakens multi-agency intelligence and undermines our ability to meet statutory safeguarding duties under the Children Act, working together and inspection frameworks. National and local inspections are clear. Missing episodes are a critical source of intelligence, and RHIs are one of the most important tools for identifying exploitation, coercion and contextual harm. Staffordshire's own Inspecting Local Authority Children's Services, ILAC's inspection, highlighted weaknesses in partnership working, risk understanding and the use of performance information. Reducing RHIs moves us further away from improvement. There is also no transparent performance data from the current provider. We've not been given raw data, engagement rates, timeliness, outcomes, intelligent themes or evidence of impact on repeat missing episodes. Without this, neither the Cabinet member nor this committee can be ensured that the service is effective or that reducing its scope is safe. The proposal reduces the provider's workload without reducing contract value, creating a structural financial benefit. It introduces short-term financial saving that may lead to long-term cost and reputational risks for SCC and undermines reciprocity with other authorities. Meanwhile, safeguarding activity decreases while safeguarding risk remains unchanged, raising legitimate questions about the rationale behind the recommendation and the evidence provided to the Cabinet member. Finally, Staffordshire places many of its own children outside the county. If we withdraw supporting CICOLAs, we weaken the principle of reciprocity that protects our own children elsewhere. For these reasons, I urge the committee to request full disclosure of the data and officer advice underpinning this proposal and to consider whether the decision is safe, evidence-based and aligned with our statutory responsibilities. So, to summarise, I invite the panel to request full disclosure of all data, performance information and officer advice provided to Councillor Lakin in relation to this proposal. Commission a review of the provider's raw data, including engagement, timeliness, outcomes, repeat missing episodes and quality insurance arrangements. Request a formal written risk assessment of the proposal, including legal, safeguarding, financial and reputational risks and how these will be mitigated. Seek explicit assurance that any proposal is safe, proportionate and aligned with statutory duties, inspection expectations and the Victims and Prisoners Act 2024. Consider alternative options that maintain RHI coverage for CICOLAs For example, improved performance management, revised commissioning arrangements, or collaborative funding approaches with placing authorities before any withdrawal of RHI is agreed. I am completely confident that Councillor Lakin has made this decision with the best of intentions. We are not about political point scoring. We're here to do the best for all the people of Staffordshire. Sometimes that means holding our own to account to make sure our decisions are the right ones. Therefore, we feel it is only right for this decision to be put before scrutiny. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Humphreys. Would the chair of SEND, Councillor Luca, do you have any comments?
No, I wish to make no comments at this moment.
Thank you. Councillor Lakin, you have 5 minutes to go through and discuss this decision, and of course 5 extra minutes for the officer also.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll start off by saying this report that has just been read out from Councillor Screen is misguided and misinformed. Of the 13 who put in the calling process, not one contacted any officers, not one contacted me to ask what it was all about, which I find amazing. I'll go into the process now of what actually is the decision that I made and what it was based upon. The research that I put in to the report included reading the Department for Education statutory guidance, included working together, included speaking with officers on lengthy bases, included inviting Councillor Screen into a meeting where I spoke with those officers and where he subsequently raised issues, which is fine, and those issues were addressed before I made the decision. The process of the report went through the senior leadership team, went through Councillor Doherty initially, went through the leader of the party before it came to me, and everybody was in agreement. Councillor Doherty raised a few issues which were then subsequently addressed around KPIs and the measurement of the company who carry out RHIs within county. And then the decision obviously came down to myself. So all the research that I carried out led me to believe, and I still believe, that the process is right. There are no cuts to funding for RHIs. The process is simple. If a child goes missing, currently, if a child goes missing in Staffordshire, Staffordshire Police are the organisation who investigate that missing child and why that child has gone missing. If there are any concerns relating to the missing child when the child is found, then there's a multi-agency approach to discuss those issues. The return home interviews are statutorily required. They are an invite. We can't make a child sit down and be interviewed. The request for the interview is sent out. And there are many reasons why the child may not get interviewed or want to be interviewed. So that's the current process. So that's any child that goes missing within Staffordshire. A child within the care of Staffordshire County Council goes through exactly the same process. If they're outside of the county, then the company, which is Trinity, don't interview them. It's social workers that go to interview them. Now, those children could be in London, in Scotland, as far as St Ives. And a social worker potentially is expected to go and travel there, interview and travel back, which is a lot of time, a lot of money, when a external provider could be doing that at a far more cost-effective rate. So the interview process will still go on. It's not being withdrawn from Staffordshire children. Under the current system, Trinity interview children who are placed in Staffordshire from other local authorities. We don't get to see the intelligence or the information that is gathered during that process. We don't get to see that now. We get to hear through the police and through the multi-agency working that goes on, and good multi-agency working, which has been highlighted in the latest inspection and in the inspection of the police, good multi-agency workings. So if there is anything that jumps out to the police officer on the safe and well returning home interview that they carry out, we do, as an authority, get to know about it. But if they're a child from another authority, even under the current process, we don't get to know about it unless the other authority give us that information, or it comes via the multi-agency working with the police. Under the new system, it puts more emphasis on the other local authorities to interview the child that is in Staffordshire. I've got a lot more to say, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Lakin. I'm sure as a committee we can ask more questions so we can get more detail on this decision so we can get more clarity. Now it is, well, the committee's side of this where we can ask questions to Lakin. And do we have any questions, members? Councillor Farrell.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a question before we start of the officers. I'm just looking at the report packs today, and 13 people seem to have called this in. The top of the list was Councillor Screen, Councillor Miners, but they are not put in the report back today. Could the officers explain to me why some of those councillors have been taken off the original list?
Chris.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. Yes, you're quite right. So initially, Councillor Miners and Councillor Screen did call the decision in, but the Constitution is very clear that as Cabinet members, they aren't able to call that in. So that's an issue, a technical issue with mod.gov that we need to look into, hence why the report pack has removed them from the call-in list.
Councillor Farrell.
I appreciate that, thank you. There seems to be another Cabinet member on that list that I can see, and also a couple of Cabinet support officers, Cabinet support members. Can you explain that to me? Sorry.
So, as I said, Councillor Farrell, so Cabinet members, full Cabinet members aren't able to call in. Cabinet support members are exactly that. They are support members to the Cabinet. They aren't recognised Cabinet members, therefore are able to call a decision in.
Any other questions? Councillor Luca.
Okay. First of all, can I just say, Councillor Larkin, that personally I think what you're doing is absolutely amazing, because for far too long, children's safety and vulnerable safety has been a second thought round here. So I thank you on that. But the concern that I had, but you've just actually explained it, was would we actually miss information? Now you've told me that Trinity isn't even actually giving you that information. What are we actually doing about making sure that we actually do get the information?
Be corrected, my Chairman here, if I get this slightly wrong. That information, when a child is returned home, the police are the first responders, for want of a better description. They are the people, the organisation that ensure the child is safe and well, and that the environment that they're going back into is an appropriate environment. If it isn't, then we get to know about it because it's on our patch.
I suppose just to clarify that, every child who is living in Staffordshire, whether a child in our care or in the care of another local authority, will receive that safe and well check by police. And that intelligence is shared around those vulnerable children within our integrated front door. So this proposed change of who completes the return home interview makes no difference, because we don't get to see that return home interview for those children who are in the care of other local authorities but placed in our borough. But the safe and well check and any concerns will still be shared, because it would still remain our responsibility, in line with working together, to call the strategy discussion if required, and then it would be led by the local authority with parental responsibility. So the return home interview, at the point of showing information, may not have even happened. That can take 72 hours in line with expectations. So it's an additional piece of information. So that safeguarding information is discussed before that.
Farrell?
Thank you, Chair. I've just been reading through the original call-in reasons. I appreciate that a few of those are off the list now because 3 of them are Cabinet members. The top one from Councillor Screen says, "My concern is clear. If we're not fully aware of the risks and do not openly recognise them, we cannot effectively tackle them. RHIs are a critical tool for identifying exploitation indicators and understanding why children go missing." Councillor Screen looks after community safety. So if there's such a clear disagreement amongst Cabinet members about this, why was this an essential decision for you to make, Councillor Lakin?
Because he's misguided. Simple as that. Your administration set up this policy with all the current issues that potentially exist. Your administration, or previous administration, basically used Staffordshire ratepayers' money, or taxpayers' money, to fund other authorities for the, when it comes to return home interviews. He's misguided. He's got concerns, I've got concerns, but when you look at all the facts, all the legislation, all the procedures in place, then just changing who actually carries out the return to home interviews externally, because that's what it's about, it's the external ones, not the internal ones. The internal ones will carry on exactly the same. It will free up social workers' ability to deal with issues in county rather than travelling 8 hours a day to interview a child who's gone missing. That 8 hours they can spend attending to children who have come through the front door up at Lindham House and need to be looked after, need to be assessed.
Thank you. So just to be clear, you believe a third of the Cabinet are misguided. So is the problem in the communication of this policy?
No, there's no misguidedness in the communication of the policy. It's individuals following Councillor Screen's misguided advice to them, instead of coming to myself or coming to officers. And we've had that discussion within Cabinet, and it has been thrashed out.
Councillor Orlando Fattini?
Yes, so has there been any issues that have been found with the external body? Is it a safe body to use?
Sorry,
And-
sorry, I can't hear you.
Sorry, has there been any issues that have been found with the external body that we are going to be using instead of our internal? And if we are using external, so it's 2 questions, do you think there could be delays in information being passed between bodies? Because I understand there are a lot of different bodies all working together when a child goes missing. Do you think it could actually delay information being passed between, instead of using internal, where it could possibly be processed faster? Because obviously the time taken for information to be passed could mean like very detrimental outcomes for a child that has obviously gone missing or being interviewed for the reasons why, and that information being passed on really needs to happen as quickly as possible.
firstly, the use of an external body isn't a new process at all. It isn't a new thing. That currently happens. It's using that external provider to offer a return to home interview to Staffordshire children who are outside of Staffordshire. That's what the proposal, the policy is about. It's not about the quality of return to home interviews. It's not about the quality of the individuals employed by Staffordshire County Council or by Trinity. It's about the process. The quality of interviews, any issues arising as a result of poor investigation or information gathering, that's a management issue. When the contract comes up for renewal in March, those issues will be looked at to see whether or not there is a better provider out there for the return to home interview process. As Gemma said, the initial gathering of information happens when the child is returned home or to the place of safety and is carried out by the police. And the multi-agency discussions that go on after that are within 24 hours, am I right?
Where possible.
Where possible, within 24 hours where possible. Whereas the return to home interviews are potentially 72 hours.
I suppose just to clarify as well, these return home interviews for children placed in Staffordshire by the local authorities will still happen. They are the responsibility of those local authorities, just as our children placed outside our borough. It is our responsibility to make sure those return home interviews happen. So these vulnerable children will still receive it. The question is, who is funding that return home interview?
Councillor White.
Thank you very much, Chair. Morning, Councillor Lakin. Firstly, just thank you, Councillor Humphreys. I think it's really healthy that if we've got an honest disagreement here as members, that we air it in the appropriate forum. And the point of scrutiny is that it's not principally party political. So, you know, it's good that you've and the others who called in this, if you felt strongly enough to do so, that you've done so and you've honestly put your case. Likewise, Councillor Lakin, my main priority is to try and support you in your role, your Cabinet Member for Children and Families. That's a fundamental role in our authority. You'll have noticed I don't spend a lot of time having a go at you. And there's a reason for that, because I want to be able to support you wherever I can. And I don't doubt that you're trying to do what you think is right as well. So I've got a couple of questions. They're just about understanding it rather than, you know, sort of trying any tricks or games. So the first question, and I think we were sort of getting to that a moment ago, is if nothing changes, so if this decision was rescinded, if we continued as we are, what would be the consequence for Staffordshire? Is it about the money that's being spent, or is it about the outcomes that are being achieved? Which one, or is it about both?
Thank you. It's about providing the best service for Staffordshire children. The money is an issue, obviously, because the money that is currently spent with social workers travelling around the country can be redirected into a more focused service. Under the previous policy, or the existing policy, Staffordshire residents are paying for other local authorities or the children of other local authorities. And it is only right and proper that the other local authorities take their responsibilities and carry out their legal requirements. So money comes into it, yeah, finances comes into it, but there is no reduction in finances at all. So it's not a case of penny pinching or anything like that. It's a case of utilising the resources as best possible.
So, so when we instigated these RHIs for children who are in the care of another authority, my recollection at the time, and I'll be happy to be corrected, was that there was some concern that they weren't happening consistently. And so we took the burden of that on to make sure that they were, because we can all recognise the intelligence has value. Appreciate the point you made about how it's shared, but the intelligence has value, and we know the reasons why that is. So is the real sort of driving point behind this to get those other authorities to do what they should be doing, or is that not really a concern? Is it just that we were being overly generous in taking a burden that we didn't need to take because these were happening anyway?
My view on the situation is everybody should step up to the plate and do what they are required to do. So to a certain degree, yes, I suppose it's ensuring that other local authorities do what they're supposed to do. But for Staffordshire children, we need to do the best that we can. And Staffordshire children outside of the county are not getting as good a deal because of our inability, as much as anything else, to get to them, or for social workers to get to them in a timely fashion to understand why they've gone missing and why they continue to go missing.
Yeah. Were they consistently happening, though, for the children in the care of another authority residing in Staffordshire before we took on the burden of it?
You tell me.
It's my recollection, but
yeah.
It's distant.
Yeah.
Because it's from a couple of years ago when this was discussed at at an informal cabinet meeting, that there were concerns that it wasn't. I mean, perhaps.
So you put into place a process that was to safeguard children within Staffordshire.
Yeah. So what we would need to see happen with the decision, and I totally get the rationale behind the decision, by the way, is we would cease to fund that, and that would force those other authorities to step up to the plate, and the risk would be that they didn't. That would be, whether you think it's a negligible risk or not, but the risk would be, if we're no longer funding it and in control of those interviews, would be that other authorities aren't doing it, and therefore we lose that intelligence. That would be the risk.
But we don't have that intelligence and information anyway.
No, but the system does.
No, the system has the information on the return when the safe and well returns with the police. That information, if that information is passed to another authority and they choose not to pass it to us for whatever reason, we don't see it anyway now.
But you would expect that they would do if there's a risk identified, because we're all in the business of safeguarding children, aren't we? Sorry, did you want to add something?
I suppose it's just to clarify the difference between the safe and well check and the return home interview. So the safe and well check will pull out the risk factors and the safeguarding factors. Your return home interview is really dealing with those push and pull factors and the care planning for that individual child. And I think the other aspect we really need to think about is best practice is really clear that it's an independent person that completes that return home interview. So for our children who may not be living now in Staffordshire, but are our children in care, we are not offering them the best practice because we're offering it for other children from other local authorities. And the purpose of this decision isn't just about, it's not about saving money, it's using that financial envelope primarily for our children.
So why can't we do both? Because I think that would satisfy Councillor Humphreson and the members who've called it in. So I presume there's a reason.
Resources, as much as anything else. That's one reason I would come up with. There are other reasons, I'm sure, that given a modicum of time I could come back with, but certainly resources. We're stretched as it is, and hence the reason we're putting extra money in to make the system better. But resources.
If I may, Chair, just thank you very much. That's really appreciated.
Councillor Rose.
Thank you. Happy New Year, everyone. So I'm just to clarify a point, sorry. So the purpose of this is essentially to redirect funds that we're putting on for children who are out of our LA, living here, to redirect it to children from our LA who aren't living here. Is that correct? So the money's being redirected that way?
Sorry, say again.
So you're saying that the purpose of this is for children who are Staffordshire County Council kind of children who aren't living in Staffordshire at the moment. The purpose of this is to make sure that those children living in a different authority are receiving the money that's currently going for children living in our authority, but are from a different authority, essentially.
It's to free up resources so that those resources can be better used, which basically means that an independent party will carry out the return to home interviews, freeing up the resources, i.e. the social workers who currently carry it out externally. So it frees those social workers up so that they can carry out work within Staffordshire when children are or coming through the front door, through the integrated front door.
Okay, so based on that then, if a child who is the responsibility of Staffordshire County Council, if they're not living within Staffordshire, will that have an impact on them? As in, will other authorities then stop providing that care for our children that are living in their authority? Is this going to have, like, you know, is it going to be a kind of a case of we're just stealing from Peter to give the Paul?
No, we carry on. We're still responsible for children who are outside of Staffordshire County boundaries. If we place somebody in Scotland, we're still responsible as their corporate parent, for want of a better description.
But would they not be carrying out the initial? They wouldn't be anyway. No. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Farrell.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I go back to Councillor Humphreyson's speech at the beginning, which I thought was very eloquent, and he mentioned the importance of full disclosure of data and a full disclosure of the officer advice. So I would like to see that. And listening to your answer to Councillor White, I don't have full confidence that we know the full data of how many of these would have been missed previously to this policy coming in. You know, mentioned earlier about the communication between different councils. I think that's important to look into the data to see how many interviews possibly might have dropped out the system. So I think it's important we get the full data, and I do think this is important because clearly it's an emotive issue that people care about very strongly, that this goes back to Cabinet for a full Cabinet decision. Thank you.
Just bear with me 2 seconds, I might... Have you got the data there? The data that is available is quite complex, really. It's simple when you look at it on the screen, but it is quite complex because I could say to you that during the month of June, for example, there are 112 missing episodes. Sounds a lot. 74 of those were from children. Okay, so some children went missing more than once. Offered, the return to home interview offered was 98%. Okay? Now, why there's 1.1% not offered, that, when you drill down into the figures, there's again, 1,001 reasons. It could be the complexity of the child, it could be the complexity of the situation. So it's not, just banding out figures isn't the be-all and end-all. You have to look beyond the figures. You have to look at why the children didn't take up the offer, or why the offer wasn't even placed. And again, when you look at out of county episodes, again, I'll take June, 29 missing episodes with 17 children. However, the return to home interviews offered is 27%. Now, again, that could ring alarm bells. You think, well, why that? But again, when you drill down into the complexities, it could well be that the return to home interview wasn't offered because the social worker was going to go and see the child anyway, within a sort of 72-hour window. Now, that's a management process, not the policy process. That's a management process. Those figures, some of them aren't good enough, and through the corporate parenting panel, it was discussed just before Christmas, if I remember rightly, and the figures were challenged, and we wanted to know a little bit more granular detail about why the children were either not being offered return to home interviews or were not being seen as a result of being offered those return to home interviews. So that is a management aspect. Now, that's a management aspect within the County Council. It's also a management aspect within Trinity, who supply the service. And that's something that the officers are looking into and are trying to come up with more granular detail of why certain children aren't being either offered or aren't being seen having been offered. So I'll come out with loads of figures, facts and figures for you, but the intricacies are more complex than the facts and figures.
Thank you. No, thanks for that answer. I appreciate that. I was mainly looking for the comparison of data between where we are now and before this policy was implemented, and just a concern if we went back to the policy of letting other authorities do the interviews outside Staffordshire, how many children potentially will drop through the cracks in terms of the information gathered for us. And to repeat the point, I do think this should go to a full cabinet decision, if not full council, because clearly members are very worried about this policy change.
Did you just repeat the first part of your question?
It was just about the whether we are clear on the data before this policy was introduced, so when other authorities were doing the interviews themselves, and then when we brought the interviews in-house, all over the country, whether the data improved. So then moving forward, we went back to the old policy. Are we clear that the amount of interviews we would be doing would be an appropriate number? Would we lose a percentage? Would data drop in terms of miscommunication between different local authorities? I'm just not clear that we know that data. We do, but I'm not sure if we do.
Right, that data can be obtained, but it's apples and oranges, to be perfectly frank with you. It's what's happening now and how we're gathering the intelligence and the information now. What happened under the previous administration, what happened when in May of this year, those facts and figures, because of the complexity of the children and the return to home the reasons that they go missing and the information that comes out on the return to home interview process for Staffordshire children, the figures are not well, the figures would could be misleading. So knowing those figures doesn't necessarily say, oh, it was better then than it is now, or it's better now than it was then. The complexities of the children coming into our care affect the figures and how we deal with the figures. And that, again, like I say, that's a management thing. The policy itself, which is we're changing from return to home interviews being carried out by social workers for children who are out of county, for Staffordshire children who are out of county, to an independent company carrying that process out, freeing up the social workers to carry out the work that they need to do in county for children in county. That's what the process is about. That's what the policy is about, not the facts and the figures. We can bandy facts and figures about all day long, but it's what's happening now that matters.
Councillor Luca.
So if I'm understanding this right, what you're actually saying is the last administration set up this policy and it might have been okay for that time, but now it's not fit for purpose. Leading on from that, when you're saying that our social workers are having to travel, can I ask, what's the costs of what they're actually spending to travel to interview these children, and the type of mileage that we're looking at, and how are we going to use these resources saved?
Have you got facts and figures on that?
So I can give you, during the period of June to November 2025 last year, children who were, let me just get the missing episodes of children in our care placed out of Staffordshire, So we're talking, let's compare June to June. So there were 29 missing episodes relating to 17 children. So those children, what I don't have in front of me right now is where they are placed, but they could be in Scotland, they could be St Ives. So it's the travel and the distance for the staff. I think the other thing to bear in mind here isn't just resources, it's the fact that our offer by our social workers is not as strong as the commission provider, and it isn't in line with best practice. So what we're saying by this redirection of resources, they will have they're more likely to get a better offer, and it's more in line with best practice. Yes, there'll be time saving for social workers, but given the pressures and demands on our social workers currently, that's not necessarily a cost saving or a reduction of a post, but it's actually about releasing that time for them to do the work they need to do whilst being in line with best practice.
Any other questions? Councillor Eggington.
I was just wondering if you've got an actual figure. Might put you on the spot here, Councillor Lakin, but have you got like a mileage figure we're talking about a year? And whose vehicles would they be using to transport the kids to, like, from Land's End to John O'Groats?
Sorry, I don't think mileage is relevant to this part of the discussion, but
it's just like a general question, you know.
Yeah, Councillor.
Well, I mean, if having been to St Ives on a number of occasions, I can tell you from here, it's 350 miles there, 350 miles back. That's 700 miles. It's a 4-hour journey there. It's a 4-hour journey back. If you've got screaming kids in the car and a dog that wants to get out every now and again, it can take you longer. You know, so that's the sort of journey that potentially the social workers are having to undertake. So you've got an 8-hour. You're paying a social worker 8 hours to sit in the car and travel. So there's a cost saving. If you can work out how much an average social worker costs, you know, that will give you an idea of the cost saving or the potential cost saving. Because, you know, of course, the external provider will still have to potentially do that journey, you know, at a cost. And you know, the children aren't being transported. It's the social worker going to see the child, not the child being transported there or transported back.
Any other questions? Oh, Councillor Jones.
Good morning, everyone. Just to clarify, with what has been said, what concrete assurances can you provide that every child in care placed in Staffordshire will remain fully safeguarded and receive timely, high-quality return home interviews regardless of which authority placed them, and what proactive steps will you take to ensure no child falls through the cracks? Thank you, Chair.
I could ask you exactly the same question. There's a risk. There's always a risk. No matter what system there is, there's always a risk. It's how we manage that risk. The proposals are, at the moment, under the new policy, the return to home interview process that currently goes for Staffordshire children within Staffordshire will continue. Children within Staffordshire from other local authorities, it is their responsibility to carry out that return home interview or offer it, because that's all it is. It's an offer. If the child turns it down, we cannot mandate it, and neither can the other local authority. The intelligence and the information comes from the return home, the safe and well check that is carried out by the police. And that information then comes within Staffordshire County Council, within the, I can't remember the name of the meeting, Jim, what's it called again? The strategy meeting. And it is discussed. So it should not be lost, but risk is there. We cannot, you know, we can't rule out risk. It will still exist. It exists at the moment.
If it helps just to clarify, we have a dedicated missing process officer within the local authority who links daily to look at processes being completed. So obviously excluding those children in care placed outside in our local authority who aren't our children, all of that return home information goes to our child exploitation and missing team. We don't currently have the return home interview, but we still link up the intelligence for children placed externally. Whilst I can't sit here and give you concrete assurance that we will check every other local authority who has a child placed in our area will fulfil their duty, it'll be certainly something that we keep an eye on closely through that daily triage process.
Councillor Orlando Fantini.
It's just a quick, straight question, really. I was just wondering why this didn't come through scrutiny in the first place, because this could have saved this whole sort of debacle, really, and go through the correct channels with this paper itself.
It's a delegated decision, but it went through Councillor Doherty, who's in scrutiny.
Okay, and how did Councillor Doherty scrutinise this on her own?
She read the papers, she challenged or placed a couple of challenges in the comments. If you look at the process of the policy, those were addressed. I can't remember the name of the officer that addressed them, but those were addressed. And it was down, again, it was down to the management of the process, not necessarily the process itself.
Do you think it could have been better to put it through scrutiny fully rather than just using Councillor Doherty?
I think it's been scrutinised now, but what's the point of having a delegated decision if every decision has to go through a scrutiny?
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Rose.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry for the confusion, and if you have explained this, I'm just getting confused at this point. So, a Staffordshire County Council child living in Scotland who will do that return to home interview, will that still be a Staffordshire County Council social worker, or are you saying that's where you're going to get the agency staff in to do the interview, or to offer the interview?
As it stands at this precise moment in time, Staffordshire County Council social workers would offer that interview, and if the interview is accepted, would go and carry out that interview. Under the new proposal, it would be the independent provider who would offer it in the first instance, and then if that offer is accepted, would carry out the return to home interview.
Are there any further questions? Councillor Luca.
Okay. Councillor Larkin, obviously you're saying it's going to free up the social workers. So how many hours will this proposal actually give back for the social workers to actually work for the children of Staffordshire by actually accepting this?
Again, that's an open-ended question. If you just take the 27 missing children out of the county, 17 missing children out of the county in June, and the reason I picked June is because that's a high figure compared to the other figures. It depends where they live. You know, again, if they're in St Ives, if all of them were in St Ives, or it was 17 episodes of a child in St Ives, then you've got a minimum of 8 hours a day, and you can work the finances out for that. If they're in Stoke, it's an hour there, an hour back, however long it takes with the child. And again, you can't place a time on the return to home interview because of the potential complexities that need to be addressed in relation to the reason for the child going missing or repeatedly going missing. So I couldn't give you a definitive answer there, but anything from 16 plus hours for one child up to, or down to sort of 3, 4, 5 hours for another child, and then replicate that.
Okay.
Councillor Farrell.
Thank you, Chair. And it's been an interesting discussion this morning, and it's taken us 45 minutes, I think, to get to the nub of the issue. And Councillor Orlando Fantini, I think, hit the nail on the head, really, when she said this really needs proper scrutiny. And I think I would suggest to colleagues, if somebody is minded to propose this, that this goes to Cabinet for full decision, but then should be referred to the relevant scrutiny committee, because I think there's clearly still lots of information and data here that can be teased out and discussed. So that would be my suggestion to colleagues, if anyone was minded to propose that.
Thank you for that. Is there a seconder to that?
Yeah, I'm happy to propose it, or if somebody else wants to propose it, I don't mind either way, but I'm happy to propose it.
If you propose it. Rose, do you want to second that? Okay. Is the committee happy with that? Could you say that recommendation again? And
Yeah, of course, yeah. So I recommend, I believe it's B in the report, that we refer it to Cabinet for a full Cabinet decision. And then my recommendation would be that it also goes to the relevant scrutiny committee. But I don't think we can actually recommend that, but officers can correct me. Can't force it, no, but I'd recommend it.
what do members think about this? Are there, because you could, if it's where there's, let me go through the recommendations, if that's fine. One, we can accept this decision and it goes forward as normal. B, it refers back to the cabinet member or the cabinet and they can look at the information, and that's the extra point Farrell's added there, that where it goes back to the scrutiny. I'm not sure if that, I'm not sure about how that works, but yeah, I think I can talk to scrutiny and see how that works. Otherwise, it can go to full council. I assume no members would want this to go to full council. Can you no, okay. Then really the recommendations is this decision goes ahead, and B, it goes back to Cabinet, and maybe add that to scrutiny. So if we go with Alex, Councillor White.
Thanks, Chair. Yep. So, I mean, just by 10 pence worth on it. I'm genuinely not clear what the right decision is at the moment. What I'm clear is that there is a, in terms of whether the delegated decision should stand or whether the current process should be retained, or indeed some third way. I'm genuinely not clear on that. What I'm clear on is that there are lots of people with good intentions who are trying to do the right thing. So it seems reasonable to me, and it's not criticising anybody in doing so, to say if it could be referred back to Cabinet. I think that recommendation about it going to the relevant scrutiny committee would be a good idea, because that, that provides that extra assurance. And then when Cabinet makes the decision, so there's no effort to take it away from Cabinet, I think it would be the wrong thing to do to say it has to be a full council decision, we don't trust Cabinet to do it. Then when Cabinet make that decision, everybody can be confident that everything has seen the light of day, it's fully understood. And then I'd be very happy to accept whatever decision Cabinet made personally. So it sounds sensible to me.
Councillor Rose.
Yes, thank you. I'm happy with what everyone's just said. I was just wondering if we could invite Councillor Humphreys to just give his kind of final remarks on this kind of topic, because obviously he was the person to call it in, so I was just interested to hear his opinion again on this matter.
Councillor Humphreys, what do you think of this proposal so far?
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to speak again. I know I've been a bit difficult sitting here for 45 minutes not saying anything. Yeah, I would be happy on that recommendation to put it back to full Cabinet and then abide by their decision, let them scrutinise it themselves.
Thank you. Are there any comments from anyone else? Councillor Luca?
Yeah. Councillor Humphrey, I understand where you're coming from, and I actually was one of the first people that actually called this in as well. But after hearing this morning and hearing what Councillor Larkin's actually said and what the officers have said, as chair of Safeguarding and Send, I'm actually quite happy with the answers that he's given today. And I don't actually think it needs to go to full committee. I'm happy to back the decision after having a talk with Councillor Larkin to get a bit more in-depth information, because what he's actually said has made actually a lot of sense today.
Is that a counter proposal for your recommendation? That okay? Is there a second to that? Councillor Farrell.
I suggest it's probably a vote then, Chair, isn't it?
I think it might be. So, Farrell, would you like to lay out your recommendation first, then we do a vote on this?
Of course, yeah. So I recommend to this committee that the decision goes back to Cabinet for a full Cabinet decision. And I'd like to add that I would prefer it to also go through the relevant scrutiny committee. But I don't think we can actually recommend that.
And can we vote on this, please? Put your hands up for yes, do we agree? And how many against? Councillor Luca, would you like to recommend what your decision is? Well, what your recommendation?
I would like to recommend that after, obviously, Councillor Larkins and the officers have explained it today more in depth, that we allow the decision to actually stand. I mean... who would like to vote yes on this one? Sorry, did you recommend, sorry, I was talking to my screen. Sorry. So this recommendation is going back to Cabinet for them to decide. Yes, okay. Who would like to vote yes on this? Councillor Luca, can you confirm your recommendation? My recommendation was that after Councillor Larkins actually explained it, that I think the decision should go back with the Cabinet member, not actually Cabinet.
So for clarification, it's option A.
Okay, so this recommendation would be the decision's fine and would be carried forward. So who wants to vote yes on this? Are there any against this recommendation? Yeah, can be abstentions too. And from that vote, it's agreed that this will go back to the Cabinet member and the decision's fine. So if everyone's happy with that, we can... Thanks for everyone's contributions and we can end the meeting. So thank you very much.